Howdy, Jacksonville. Great to see y'all. This is what makes America great. This right here, I tell you what. Mr. Woods, God bless you and your family. Thank you for being here. And we'll talk a little bit about Benghazi and the day Hillary Clinton came in there and said, "What difference does it make?" But before I get into that, I just want to give a shout out to Stephanie Jason. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your story. And Kevin Shipp, you were spot on, man. I cannot tell you. We talk about all these things that are going on in government and why. You know, I'm an outsider. I'm a veterinarian. And made my living on the south end of a northbound horse or cow for 30 years. And people said, "What's your political experience?" I said, "Pretty much that. I learned to keep my mouth shut sometimes." But when I went up to Washington, I didn't think it was my duty to keep my mouth shut. And we spoke out and we challenged, the leadership of the status quo and said, "This is not right. We're going to change some things." And I'm happy to say things are changing. You're just not seeing it yet, but it is changing. And I think, I came in with the Tea Party wave. I was in the second wave of that. And I'm a member of the House Freedom Caucus, and I'm proud of that. And we get ribbed about that. "Oh, you guys are too radical." No, I don't think we're radical enough, because there's a lot of bad going out there. And, it's time to change this country and get it back on the track that our founding fathers set forth over 200 years ago. And so where do we start? I sit on the Agricultural Committee, and I sit on Foreign Affairs, and I've been on that for 6 years. I'm passionate about foreign affairs. I've been in office. This will be my end of my third term, running for one more, and I ran on term limits. And I serve with Ron DeSantis, and Ron is doing a great job. In fact, Ron led the charge of getting rid of the Mueller investigation that we signed on and supported and turned the focus on where it really needs to be: Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Loretta Lynch, and President Obama. But if we go back to Libya, if we go back to failed policies, and we can't just look at the previous administration, our foreign policy has been off track for 30 or 40 years, and that deep state is real. I'm telling you, you see the puppet strings being pulled, and there's a group up here, and I think we know who a big portion of those are, and I'll mention those at the end. Those are the ones that are controlling government. Phyllis Schlafly wrote a great book. It's called A Choice, Not an Echo. And it talks about the parties. When you get to the upper echelons of government, it's the party of big government. And they want to protect that status quo. So we get handed in the last presidential election on the Republican side, it was Jeb Bush, low energy Jeb. And on the other side, it was Hillary Clinton. Those were the designated candidates that we were going to have. We didn't want them. Thank God for Donald Trump. People said the Tea Party movement is done. It's over. I disagree with that, because Donald Trump is the epitome of the Tea Party movement. He is what really is a culmination of all that struggle that we did. And I was on a show with, what's that guy's name? I forget his name. He's on there all the time on TV, on Fox Business News, the older fellow. Lou Dobbs. And he says, "Congressman, this is my first year," and he says, "You're not going to come back. You realize that, right? John Boehner's against you, the Republican Party, the Chamber of Commerce is after you." I says, "Let him come." And he goes, "Well, you don't feel like this is bullying?" I says, "Sir, I got 5 older brothers. I know what bullying is." And I says, "You mean to tell me if I'm standing up for our core values, our founding principles, and the Constitution, you're telling me that's wrong?" And I says, "I'll take that fight on every day, because this country needs people that are willing to stand up." So when we look at things like Benghazi, how does that happen? It doesn't happen overnight. It's a buildup of people wanting to change this government. It's a buildup of bad foreign policy or by design that leads this country astray. You know, PSD 11, as we talked about, and you're right on that, it was a presidential directive by President Obama, and her and Hillary Clinton, I would have you look at this and I would have you read it. Former Congressman Huckster, he had a great article, I think it's in the Washington Times, that talks a lot about this. And it was pretty much a roll of the dice to see what happens. You know, we're going to disrupt and do regime change in these Middle Eastern countries. Granted, there's a shortage of stability over there. But we had a livable stability that we've had for the last 40 or 50 years. But with this new change, with the Obama administration, they came in there and they changed foreign policy. And they said, well, let's roll the dice and see what happens if we do a no-fly zone in Libya. Bob Gates' book, Duty, Robert Gates' book, Duty, has got great information on this. He was against it. A lot of the people that were the military intelligence officers were against this, advised against it. But Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice, Samantha Powers were the ones that were pushing this because they come out of that new elite of the Hillary Clinton class and the John Kerrys. And they come out and they say, we're going to do this. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we'll see. Folks, we know what happens when you take a despot out like Saddam Hussein. We know what happens when you take a bad guy out like that. Chaos ensues. John Kerry was in our Foreign Affairs Committee saying, we're going to do this to Syria. It's my first year up there. We were going to go into Syria after the Benghazi tragedy happened. John Kerry says, well, we're going to go into Syria and do a no-fly zone. No, you're not. We in Congress wrote letters to John Boehner, because it was John Boehner, Eric Cantor, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and President Obama says, we are going in there and do no-fly zones. Congress stood up and wrote letters bipartisanly, and we demanded hearings, and we stopped that. And I can remember John Kerry coming in and said, well, Congressman, you don't understand. We're just going to do small, minute pinpricks and take out their air service. I said, no, sir, I understand very well. What you're talking about is attacking a sovereign nation that did not attack us. That's an act of aggression. That's an act of war, is it not? He goes, oh, no. I said, you mean to tell me if somebody attacked this nation and did a small pinprick bomb, we wouldn't take that as an act of aggression? Well, that would be different. I said, no, sir, it's not. You will not involve us in another unjustified or declared war that Congress does not weigh in. We stopped that. President Trump did what he did. I was against that. But, we can talk about that. I want to get back on track here. If we look at our foreign policy, it has to be long-term looking instead of changing with each administration. We need a foreign policy that'll set a course for this nation for 50 to 100 years out. The Muslim Brotherhood has one. They have a 100-year plan to take over and get rid of America. China has a 100-year plan. John, you and I, we don't know what we're doing when we go back. We need to have a long-term strategy in place so that a president or an executive can't come in and say, you know what, we're going to go this way. We're going to do regime change on the next one. We need to have something outside of the power of the president, but yet give the president authority if it's a national security issue. And that's what I plan to do with our Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm running to be the chairman of the full committee this next Congress. And if we set policies for this nation, we're not going to be bouncing back and forth, and the world will know where America stands. So how do you get a Benghazi? You get a Benghazi by misdirection, misdirection and poor leadership, and an underlying tone of changing the status quo for political purposes. And I think that's to shake up the Middle East, and it's to shake up this government here. And when Benghazi happened, Hillary Clinton came into our office, or into the Foreign Affairs Committee, and was really, I found it very startling because she had this terribly colored green dress on, about the color of the carpet down here. And she came in, she was in the antechamber in the back of the room, and she was glad handing everybody, hey, Hillary Clinton, hey, you must be new here, you want to get a picture? You know, she's smiling. And then she went out there, and I came out and sat down. Totally transformation in personality. She was sitting there very stoic, had these big round glasses on, very thick, because she had just had that concussion. And her persona had changed, but after hours and hours of questioning, and Jeff Duncan, who knew Tyrone, I guess, he was hard on her, as he should have been. And she broke down, and that's when she goes, "What difference does it make? They're dead." Can you believe that? My turn was coming up, but we ran out of time. But my questions would have been this. What difference does it make? Let me tell you what difference it makes. There's 4 families, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, daughters, children, that will never see their family member again. That's what difference it makes. We left people on the field. We were able to host John Teague out of the movie 13 Hours, who is one of the contractors that was over there that came to the rescue. We could have rescued those people. They chose not to. That's unconscionable. For anybody, for any American to see somebody do that, that's unconscionable that our government would do that. Hillary Clinton and President Obama, Susan Rice, whatever their reasoning, it needs to be held accountable. There needs to be a price paid for that. They knew from the get-go it was not that movie, that B-rate movie that they concocted, and that person that did that movie went to jail over that. It wasn't him, and they knew that, and they lied about that, and they put that lie out there for 2 to 3 weeks. This is something, again, that we need to make sure never happens. You know where ISIS came from? Bad foreign policy. ISIS is Al-Qaeda or the Taliban 2.0. It came out of that. My fear is what's going to be the next morphing of a terrorist group, because terrorism is always going to be here. As long as men and women are on this planet, as long as people are on this planet, you're always going to have that. But we should have foreign policy that protects this nation and our allies, and we should follow the rule of law, and we should be blessed and honored that God has endowed us in this country with the things that we have, the liberties and freedoms. The dark state, I think it's being controlled by power brokers and money brokers, and all you have to do is look at this election cycle. George Soros and Mr. Bloomberg, just those 2 people. Actually, it was Tom Steyer and Bloomberg, just those 2, have put in over $200 million in races around the country. They're influencing races here in Florida. Neither one lives here. You want to know who the dark state is? I think you just, like they always say, follow the money. And we were in Libya, created a no-fly zone that led to the fall of Gaddafi. A no-fly zone is when you wipe out a country's air operations so they can't, run their military. Gaddafi was not using his military to go after the people that were causing the problems over there. Gaddafi was using a normal army. And a no-fly zone can be a military operation or it can be a strategy. The way they used it was wrong. I say I'm way over my time and I'm going to shut up here. But I just want to tell you how we need to stand strong. We have sponsored a list of bills. The one that's most pertinent here is 608, H.R. 608, that Tulsi Gabbard has brought out. And it's one that says, stop arming terrorists. We will do whatever we can to get this bill passed so that we stop arming these terrorists. Saudi Arabia needs to stop getting weapons from us, like the cluster bombs that they're using in Yemen. Every time they go off, a lot of people get killed. That's got the USA on that bomb. We're going to pay for that price. We need to look at our foreign policies, and people need to adhere to our standards. We don't bend to their standards. I grew up in that era of John Wayne and the Westerns. The Americans wore the white hats, and we were the good guys. to do good, to help people out, and move on. That's where we need to get back to. With your help, we will do that. And I know people are frustrated. You don't think there's any hope out there? Do not grow weary in well-doing, for he that follows his law shall reap the harvest. This is America, and we will recoup from this, and we'll come back bigger and better. And I just pray that God continues to see fit to continue to bless this great nation of ours and stands behind this president so that he can finish not just making America great again, but keeping it great for generations to come. God bless you all for being here, and thank you.